It is our honor, our pleasure to introduce the Honorable Commissioner of the State Department of Education, Dr. Lamont O. Repollet. Good to see you, Commissioner.
Nice to meet you, Steve. Thank you. That's the first time I've ever heard the Honorable, so thank you very much.
You know that goes with
But that's
your
the
title.
first time that someone has said it publicly, so thank you very much.
Well,
kind of like that, the Honorable.
Well, I appreciate having you on here. And the one thing that struck me about your bio is you say very publicly, very proudly, that education saved your life.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, education saved my life. You know, when you grow in an urban community, there's some challenges that you have.
Tell folks where you grew up.
I grew up in Carteret, New Jersey, but I also lived in New York City. I lived in Germany. I lived in Virginia, so lived in Louisiana. So technically, I've been to 7 schools in 13 years. I've kind of experienced some things. My parents were veterans. However, when we returned from Germany, I can tell you it was kind of rough for my parents. So we did, struggle a little bit. However, but education was always the focus in my house, all right? My mother and father made sure that I did my homework, made sure that we have received a quality education.
Whole range of issues in the Murphy administration as it relates to education. If you were to describe succinctly, and you'll be talking about this at the NJEA Convention, the philosophy of the Murphy administration vis-a-vis public education and how it may be in any way different from what we've seen in the past.
The philosophy is that Governor Murphy, he's talked about a strong and fair New Jersey. So what does that mean in education? That means our approach. How do we approach education? So we're talking about reimagining, right? The governor has a progressive agenda. We're talking about expanding pre-K. We're talking about innovation for all, computer science for all. We're talking about access to community colleges and stuff like that. So that's what we call not a progressive from a political standpoint, but progressive from a growth mindset. So our approach is definitely how do we create a system that will support Governor Murphy's initiatives, but more importantly, respond to the needs of our students and our district and our stakeholders.
It's interesting. I'm sorry for interrupting, Commissioner. You mentioned pre-K, universal pre-K, which is the goal, clearly.
Yes.
One of the initiatives we are involved in is called Right from the Start NJ. You'll see the website as I'm talking to the Commissioner about this. 0 to 3, birth to 3, if you will. Talk about those early years and why they're so important.
Well, those years are important. I think there's a lot of research that supports from 0 to 3, right? And the job for 0 to 3 is to make sure that they have those basic needs, right? Maslow talked about the basic needs, food, clothing, and shelter.
Hierarchy of needs.
Yes,
if you don't have those basics,
yes, then it's
going
to be very hard.
Self-actualize.
That's
right?
my thing right there. So I guess during that period, that time is where that we key in and focus on areas. But what the Murphy administration, what we're doing is that we don't work in silos. We're kind of working with Department of Health, Department of Community Service, all those different agencies to bring together human services.
Families and children.
Family and children, to make sure that we come together and have a cohesive plan. And our First Lady Murphy, I apologize, her initiative is something that the department has really been working hand in hand with, having an expertise. Because, the end goal is get them to school, get them to 3 to 4.
Get them ready.
Get them ready. So how do we now start? We back map that from the beginning, and we support that. So I think the approach that we're taking is getting everyone involved. Intergovernmental agencies not working in a silo, I think is important. So it's definitely one thing that resonates with not just the state, but more so resonate with our administration. The governor supports it, and First Lady, she's definitely making sure we move the needle forward with that.
Testing, standardized testing, PARC tests. Things are evolving, but
Yes.
they're still in play.
Yes.
Update us.
Well, we're talking about assessment. I think we all have assessments in school, from formative to summative assessments. I know Governor Murphy talked about from day one eliminating PARC. However, we're talking about transitioning from PARC because there's federal and there's state guidelines that we must adhere to. And I think that right now we're in the process of transitioning. The State Board, in conjunction with the Department of Education and even the legislators, we work together to kind of change some of the regulations, right? Try to ease it up, try to give more support.
Why do you need to do that? Devil's advocate, why won't you just say, we need lots of standardized testing. That's the only way to really measure student performance and, if you will, the performance of teachers. Some think that. You say?
So we're talking about that progressive, that growth mindset. I think over time, yes, assessment change like anything else. In education, we need to be fluid. So right now, when we're talking about post-secondary success and the governor's talking about apprenticeships, we're talking about having our students go to college, then we need to kind of focus on getting them ready. But we've assessed kids since 3rd grade. So we have enough data to support where our kids are. Our goal right now is secondary levels to get them prepared for life after high school, secondary approach. So we're going to do that and looking at it in a meaningful way. So when Governor Murphy talks about a strong and fair New Jersey, we look at the fair piece, right? We need to make sure that our assessments are fair, right? We need to make sure that we have the proper amount of rigor. We need to make sure that we understand, our teachers and educators understand the relationship between assessments, curriculum, and standards. So we're taking a comprehensive approach into how we look at assessments, and we've had our assessment tour, and we got some positive feedback throughout the state, right? No matter what demographic you're from, what part of the state, everyone had an opportunity to weigh in on the assessments. And then we took that information and created action items. And through those action items, we had results. Those results are to reduce the number of assessments in high school from 6, I believe, from 6 to 4, to looking at the transition of having 9th and 10th grade, right? So it was a healthy compromise. 9th and 10th grade, you get that foundational. And then 11th and 12th grade, we start preparing for secondary success.
But not lowering standards at all.
No,
Okay,
we're not.
Be clear.
No, the one thing about within New Jersey, when it comes to us being ranked perennial, within the top 3, we're ranked number 2.
Public education.
Public education, that's because of great educators like you here in NJEA, and our administrators and our parents, but more importantly, our students. And that's what it's all about, our students. That's our core.
Where are we in terms of school funding, in terms of state funding to public schools, and are we where we need to be?
I think right now, I'll say this, as a practitioner, someone over the last 10 years have been involved in education, I'm excited that Governor Murphy has invested in education. I think the new funding formula, A2S2, allows us to actually plan for the future.
Let's clarify that, the state funding formula as to which districts get how much, because there are some who believe that there are certain districts that were getting too much, others not getting enough.
Yeah, so that's
just not fair.
So when the governor talked about modernizing it, I think we need to have a deep dive into our formula to make sure that local shares can afford to pay their local shares, but also make sure that there's adequate resource available for those students who may need it. Because the formula, when you look at the formula, it's not just the enrollment. It's the demographics of the students that make up that. So different districts have different demographics and different needs. We need to make sure that we modernize our formula to be able to address the needs of our students, to provide a thorough and efficient education, but also make sure that those districts have the opportunity through whether it's local share to make sure that they can afford to do that as well. So we have to have a happy balance. So the discussion will continue in the department. I know that the governor is committed to ensuring that we have a formula that's fair, because stronger and fair in New Jersey.
Commissioner, I want to thank you for joining us here at the NJEA Convention, and we appreciate your time. We look forward to continuing the conversation about our children.
Thank you very much.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by New Jersey Sharing Network, Wells Fargo, Holy Name Medical Center in Teaneck, New Jersey, NJM Insurance Group, the Turrell Fund, supporting right from the start NJ, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and by Delta Dental of New Jersey. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.